Okay, perfect. Hi.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, everyone. Hi, Leslie.
Hi.
Hi, Nutan ma'am. Hi, Nasila. There are many people whom I'm meeting for the first time today. I welcome you all, and I also thank someone for putting up all of this in this ever exciting week. Oh, hi, Divya. Okay, so we are today starting.
Hi, Yogita.
Hi, Nutan ma'am. So today we are starting with a topic which is a little bit tabooed, but very important, which is tandem nursing, right? And there are so many things to talk about tandem nursing that I would really like the participants to share their stories. And Leslie is all set to go here, right?
Yep.
Okay, then I give over to you, Leslie. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Yogita. Let's see. My motivation was for my first child. She was still breastfeeding when I got pregnant, and I really don't think that I think I was ignorant to any possible issues of breastfeeding while pregnant. And maybe I came to know them while I was pregnant, that maybe it could stimulate contractions or something, but I don't know. I think I just kind of watched for it and didn't really, I don't know, it didn't speak to me. I wasn't worried about it. But I was very concerned that my first child would not be kind of put to the side by the next child coming into the world. And so I continued to nurse her through pregnancy. And I spoke about this a little bit the other day, but when my milk dried up, maybe at like 5 or 6 months, it was a little bit hard. Because I still let her nurse endlessly, and that was hard on me. And she went with it, but it was challenging. But then my milk came back in, and everything was pretty normal. And then when the baby came, I also mentioned I bought a book called Adventures in Tandem Nursing, written by one mom. So it was more like I wanted a lot of answers about how to do it. But I didn't really get any answers. It was mostly anecdotes. And so I had to kind of figure it out. And I wanted both of my kids' needs to be met together. That was my goal. And I also wanted to see my daughter she's the elder, that, you know, there's enough to go around in the world, and that we can share, and that that they're both there together with me. And I actually don't have a ton of like really clear memories about it. A lot of times in parenthood, for me, it's like you're on to the next phase, and I only remember things when people bring things up sometimes. But for the most part, I remember it being pretty okay. I think I did let her nurse on demand sometimes when he was having milk. I did mention the other day that my rule for her basically was that he got to nurse on a breast and empty a breast to the best of his ability, and then she could feed on that breast, and kind of that was my way of feeling like I was in control of my supply and how much milk I had for my small baby. And it worked overall really well. And then I did also at this time begin to set some limits for my older child, and somebody, I don't remember feeling like exasperated or anything, or why I might have set a limit, but somebody mentioned that their preschooler was nursing for the count of 10, and it blew my mind. I thought it was absolutely crazy because, like I said, during pregnancy, she was nursing, like dry nursing, for like 45 minutes. And so I tried it, and it absolutely suited her. I was like, okay, so how about till the count of 10? And she was like, she loved it. She actually really embraced it. So she was still connecting with me through nursing, but she obviously at that point wasn't really needing more milk. and so we just kind of eased into it that way. And yeah, she was 3 and 2 months when her brother was born. And when he was really small, I was also pumping a bit. I was trying to go back to work. He had a hospital stay when he was very small for 8 days, and they made me pump in the hospital. So we were already on like a pumping journey. So I think I was trying to not only balance 2 kids, but also pumping and breastfeeding, and possibly having a little milk in the freezer if I was going to be out of the house. So I think there was a little bit of pressure around that. Also, for my first child, I had excessive foremilk, and during letdown, it was very heavy letdown. And then she kind of wound up with that green frothy stool, and I didn't know why. No one could answer that for me. And eventually I learned that it was excessive foremilk. So I was also balancing, making sure that my baby wasn't getting too much foremilk. So I was letting foremilk go. I don't remember if I let baby have the foremilk or not. I don't really remember, but the whole anecdote is sounding like quite controlled. So I think that might be a theme that I felt like I had to do a little bit of juggling. It wasn't like a easy breezy process of let's all just enjoy each other's time while you're on the breast. It was some juggling and some making sure that I felt like mostly that Jonah was getting what he needed, and that I wasn't casting baby aside. I think that's pretty much it. And Jonah, so then Davy fed until she was 4. And I did tell her when we were going to stop, and it was quite emotional. And I think I did tell her we were going to stop because of what I felt was social constraints at that point. I think I reached a mark where I became uncomfortable maybe with her feeding. And I don't remember my motivation so well. I did talk a little bit the other day about like when she was 1 year old, I felt a ton of social pressure to stop. So I did manage to bypass that and go much longer. So at 4, I said we were going to stop, and it was very emotional. And then once she kind of cried her way through that, and I almost tried to take it back because I felt so bad, and she didn't go back. She never really drank again. And then sometimes when she was much older, like maybe in the last year or so, she would still ask, and kind of be like, it doesn't really make me feel comfortable. I'm not comfortable with that. She's 10 now. But her brother is 6, and he is still having milk. And I think what my comfort level revolves around is, I think it's the need of the child. So when Davy was in her 3s, there were a couple of times that she really needed milk, either for comfort or for health, or just, for the transition of becoming a big sister. And my son is 6, and he has a developmental delay. And in a lot of ways, he is still very much in his 3s. And I feel like that is a time for me. I know the WHO says something about 2 years or whatever, but I feel like in the 3s, children have very real and tangible needs. I know that there are real needs beyond that, but yeah. So he's still nursing, and it's declining naturally. And I put some limits on it, what my comfort level is. I'm no longer really comfortable feeding him in public per se, the way I used to. And I don't really feed him for emotional comfort anymore. I'm trying to help him self-soothe in different ways and help him grow into a different level of maturity. But if he's overtired, then I make an exception. And usually he just feeds a little bit to bed now, and then maybe a little bit in the morning. And my other child still likes to cradle herself against my chest and likes to be very close to my breasts. And I I think it all made us closer. And that's it.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
And as I talk about, breastfeeding is something which is a relationship.
Absolutely. Someone said something about people learning to become human at the breast. And I think that it definitely has to do with the fact that it's a relationship, and it's about the needs of multiple people. And it's about setting boundaries and about being receptive and very, very human needs. And so I think those are all lovely, lovely things about it.
Yes. Thank you for sharing this, Leslie.
Thank you.
Okay. I would invite other participants. Divya?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Leslie. As Yogita was mentioning, pregnant nursing beyond 1 and 2 itself is looked down upon. And then when you nurse during pregnancy and go on to breastfeed your babies when they are much older, it becomes a very, I would say, intimate relationship between the child and the mother. And beyond a point, I think they've also become more resilient, where you really don't bother what everyone else has to say or feels about it, as long as the 2 people or the 3 people who are in it works. Then that's all that really matters end of the day. So in my experience, I would say I was not very informed as a first time mom, where I thought, okay, breastfeeding is for the first 6 months, and then gradually baby starts solids, and around a year, you're done. So this is probably what I had in mind when I had my son about 10 years ago. And when he was around 6 months and we started solids, and I think when he was around a year, the pressure from everyone around, like suddenly family who were keen on me breastfeeding the baby and not giving any formula would be like, okay, now it's time to start cow's milk, or more solids, or whatever else it is that we were eating. And I was also like, okay, at that point in time, maybe that, because he used to breastfeed a lot at even age 1, it was his primary source of nutrition. And he was with me wherever I went most of the time. So it was like, it worked for the both of us, but I was not very informed, as I mentioned. So around a year was when, okay, everyone is saying this should be it. So I tried many different ways, like cabbage leaves or, whatever else people suggested. I think the more I tried to convince him that, it was enough that he was having my milk, he would come back with more interest to not want to leave. So that kind of pushed me to read up more, connect with more parents. And at that time, I used to go for these breastfeeding support for Indian mothers meetups. And that's where I saw, like 3-year-old, 4-year-old coming in nursing and going. And till then, I was always covering up and nursing, or going into another room and nursing when I needed to. So it was always something which was done as far as you could, right? Not in the middle of people and out and about. So after I started going for these meetups, it was probably the first time I saw other babies nursing as part of their day, as something which was normal and common. And yes, it's the baby's need, it's mother's there to provide for the baby, and it was just that. It was so beautiful to see babies of all ages just come and nurse and go. So that kind of was a literally eye opener for me, coming from a background where I had not seen anyone else breastfeed their baby or even holding other newborn children. So I kind of said, okay, now till whenever you want to breastfeed we can continue this as long as it's working for the two of us. And I think that brought us so much closer together. I would use a carrier with him. We traveled all over, anywhere, anytime he needed milk. I was always there with him. And I would also like to share something where when he was a little over a year, I conceived. And this time during pregnancy, everyone was like, okay, like the doctor I was consulting was like, okay, now you breastfed him for a year and a half, and this is it. You shouldn't be nursing him through your pregnancy. But I was like, okay, it's working for us. So it doesn't matter. And I continued. And I actually miscarried a couple of months into the pregnancy. And this happened again after 6 months when I was pregnant again, and I miscarried around 2 months. So a lot of people told me that this was the result of breastfeeding, but I kind of went into the research, went into a lot of studies about it. And that's when I realized that yes, breastfeeding produces a lot of oxytocin, which is needed for labor, but the uterus has something which like the number of oxytocin receptors increases drastically during labor and birth. So even if you are breastfeeding during pregnancy, you will not miscarry because of that. So once I was satisfied that okay, it had nothing to do with that. um, Miscarriage is much more common and people very rarely talk about it. So that's why I wanted to put it out here, that it's not the mother's fault for what you did or what you didn't do if you miscarry. And definitely blaming it on breastfeeding is not is not a good thing to do, because very rarely it has the connection from the scientific angle. But it has a lot of benefits from the emotional angle, that you get to rest and connect. And already you're going through a difficult process. At that time you definitely need all the good hormones you can get. So if it works for the mother and baby, that's all that you need to look out for. Would be something that I have come across in my own experience as well as with others. So this was my experience during the first two pregnancies when I was nursing my son. Uh, After that, I went on to, conceive my daughter, and around my son was around 3. He nursed throughout the pregnancy till around 7th month or so, which is when he was like, okay, now there is not much milk coming in. And he would dry nurse, but I had a lot of nipple aversion. And we had a lot of conversations around it. So he gradually stopped night nursing, where okay, we will breastfeed only when the sun is up. So we had these conversations of okay, mama will be happy to feed you during the day, especially if that was probably the only time when I got to get some rest as well when I was breastfeeding him. So that worked for us throughout the pregnancy. He was happily breastfeeding. But when milk reduced and he was dry nursing, he was also very happy to be running around and playing during the day. So gradually his number of nursing sessions during the day reduced. And there was a point when he said, okay, mama, no milk is coming. So he kind of, I would say, self-weaned around 3. And after my daughter was born, he wanted to nurse again because now there was no more milk coming. But I think he probably lost his latch, so he wasn't able to get too much milk, even though he would nurse. But he would keep asking for it. And there was a point when my daughter was a few months old that he was unwell, and the only thing he wanted was my milk. So as much as he could drink, he would do that, and the rest I was kind of expressing and giving him. So for me, having my milk available was like a superpower when both the children were small, because you got hurt, there's milk. You've got pain, anything anything and everything, literally. You're hungry, you're thirsty, you're tired, you're sleepy, whatever it was, not only for the children, for literally the community I was in. I remember I shared in one of the earlier sessions, I was in the park and there was a lady who saw me with my two children. She's like, "Achha, your baby is young. Can you give me some milk? I have some eye infection." And, you know, it was so nice that people were, wanting this, that and other people would be like, okay, now your daughter is older, you should, she's talking, she's walking, and she's moving around. So breastfeeding a toddler is generally not very supportive. The same people who are supportive of breastfeeding babies, when the child is older, they somehow feel it's no longer good. So my daughter continued nursing. I think when she was around 5 was when she kind of gradually stopped. Because also I had started going for births. I was working as a doula. So I would sometimes be away for a day, sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3 days, depending on how long the birth went. And then when I would come back, she would have more milk and be with me for some time. But I think around 5 was when, she was like, okay, now everything else is also more interesting than being only with you. And those people who had said that, yes, the day will come when your baby will on their own, nursing full term will kind of come to that day. So it happens differently for each child. Someone's nursing till 3, someone's till 5, someone's till 7, someone's till 8. It's what works for the mother and the child, end of the day, which really is nobody else's business, no matter whether the mother is pregnant or tandem nursing or whatever is that person's situation there. So with, you know, both the babies, baby wearing, keeping them close. I will breastfeed the younger one in the carrier when I needed to pick up the older one from school or drop him back, or, we were traveling anywhere. So it made life so much easier that I could take care of my children's needs no matter where I was, whenever that situation came up. And yes, they remember it also very fondly. Sometimes because I still work with a lot of babies and I help mothers with lactation and baby wearing as well. So when they see other babies, they remember very fondly the time that both of them were breastfeeding, and we talk about it. And I think it's enriched each of us for what it was. And they tell their friends, oh, we so I told them about how in Mongolia, in the land of the Genghis Khan, all the strongest wrestlers were breastfed for very long till they were 7 or 8. And so they're really very happy to see the other smaller babies coming home and when their mothers are nursing them. They communicate with each other in language that they understand, which is special to them. And it's really such a pleasure and an honor to be in a space where everyone is not pulling anyone down and just supporting each other for whatever they choose to do with this superpower that their body is producing, this miracle white gold, just breastfeeding. So yeah, can nurse through pregnancy or tandem nursing, whatever it is that works for you and your baby is the right thing for you. So yeah, that's from my experience.
Wow. And I know your love for baby wearing. So
I don't know how parents manage without that.
yeah. And that's why you just train people. I really look forward to sending people to you so that they can actually understand how much important it is. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Divya.
Thank you, Yogita.
Okay. Anyone who would like to put up Yeah, Saman, please.
Nasila, would you like to go next?
Yes, sure. Give me a moment, please.
Yeah, please take your time.
So just because kids are there at home today. Yeah, so I'm Nasila. I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. So for me, I think I conceived my second one when I was 7 months into my postpartum. Obviously, it was a surprise, and I think the main thing that I was scared of at that point was people are going to ask me to stop breastfeeding because that's a norm that I've heard of. So that's something I made very clear to my husband from the first point. And when I had my first meeting with my midwife, also I told her, no matter what, I'm going to continue feeding. And she looks at me and she's like, okay, no issues with that. Like, why are you even stressing over it at this point? And I was shocked because it's the first time somebody's reacted that way. After that, through the pregnancy, I realized it's not easy. So I had nipple soreness, it was very sensitive. I think towards the end of my pregnancy, there were times when I would just push my son away while he was breastfeeding. It was like so sore. There were nights that my husband had to carry him and walk around to put him to sleep because I wasn't able to feed him. That really broke my heart. Um, and then once I had my baby, when I started tandem feeding, um, I realized it's so beautiful. Like, feeding two babies at the same time, the way they're bonding. So my son was also just over 1 year at that point. So he was also very small, and these two babies, they used to hold their hands. They used to like communicate with each other while they're tandem feeding. And I think that really built their bond. So even now they're like very close to each other, and probably it is because of tandem feeding. I did obviously from society. I got lots of taunts. There were loads of people telling me you shouldn't do this. It'll affect the baby. The baby will be low weight. And thing to point is my second one was had very good birth weight, more than my first one. So definitely there's nothing of that sort. And yeah, my elder one self-weaned around 4 years when he was 4 years. That's few months back. And the second one is in the process of self-weaning. Right now, I think she takes like probably once in a week or something. She comes to me when she needs that emotional connect. Other than that, they both are off the breast for now. And I'm just glad that I've had this beautiful breastfeeding journey. So currently, I am practicing as a lactation consultant, and I do get a lot of clients who ask me about tandem feeding. I think just yesterday I had somebody who got pregnant and she's still feeding. So she asked me about it, and I told her, don't even think about stopping. As long as you can do it, because it really builds the bond between the kids. So don't let that go out. Yeah.
Nasila, one question. What was that one hook that kept you going?
It's something I've asked myself a lot of times because obviously I know the benefits of breastfeeding, all that is there. But I think the main reason was I'm sort of a rebel. So the more people told me, don't do it, I was like, no, I'm going to show you that I can do this. That was my inspiration at those times when things were really hard and I was sore and it was painful, but I knew I've got to go through this.
Wonderful, Nasila.
I
Kudos
also have a
to like
question
you
for
and
Nasila. That's something that I actually wanted to take up with her as well. Eventually, in future, inshallah, we'll be writing a book or an article together on this. But Nasila, I would really like to ask you about the religious aspect of breastfeeding beyond 2 years, because in Islam, it is assumed that you cannot breastfeed beyond 2 years. And
Mhm.
I've been getting a lot of thrashing from all my so-called close people who care for me, who are horrified at the sight of me breastfeeding my 4.7-year-old and 2.4-year-old and 8-month-old all together. So, how did you resolve that? Did you come across criticism, and how did you go about facing it and resolving it?
Absolutely. There were people who said you need to stop at 2 years. There are some people who told me they have to stop at 2.5 years. But then I studied about it and I realized there is no upper limit. There is a lower limit, but there's no upper limit. Um, yeah, so from what I understood, if like from what I've studied, if I'm going in detail, it's like in case there is a husband and wife who are divorced, then the husband is supposed to provide for the wife and the kid as long as she is breastfeeding, which is up to 2 years. So that is where the limit comes. Beyond that, there is no limit that has been set up. And there are also there's the saying that in case you are feeding a child before the child turns 2 years, then the child becomes yours. Like, you have a blood relation with that child. So the fact that, they are stressing over before 2 years means that you can still feed beyond 2 years, but then you don't get that relation. I hope I've made that clear. I don't know if I've come through it properly. So yeah, from all that, that was my personal decision. I knew that no matter what people tell, this is the right thing and this is what I'm going to follow. And luckily, because I stay in a nuclear family, I stay in a totally different city where I don't have a lot of relatives around. So it's been quite easy for me to, do my thing without worrying about society.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
I just stopped talking about it, Saman. So, when I knew there would be a backlash or when people didn't get it, I never mentioned. If they were in front of me when my babies asked for milk and they saw, then that's the only way they would come to know that I was nursing my 3-year-old or 4-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever was the age of the baby of the child at that point in time. Otherwise, I didn't talk much about it, and I mean, after I think a point, people just assume that the child has weaned, so no one brought it up. So unless they brought it up, and I was sure that that they would not be judging me, then I would share. Or if I had the mental bandwidth to explain why I was doing what I was doing, I would share about it. Otherwise, I mean, especially people who I knew would judge, I just never brought it up. It made things easier.
Can I share a funny story?
Please.
Devi's now 10. She was just a few months ago, almost 10 years old, and we're riding in the car with my stepmother. And so my eldest was 9 and her brother still breastfeeding is 6. And my family doesn't really ask anymore. And my stepmother, she has grown so much as an individual and a person, but she was a very young mother in a lot of ways. So she's mother to my brothers, and she was a child herself in so many ways. And I think she didn't dare to have the intimacy of breastfeeding with her children because of personal repression or however she was raised. And so obviously the way I did it was in huge contrast to what her choices were. But she's not a judgmental person, but she never asked or anything. So I keep breastfeeding all these years, and it's kind of a don't ask, don't tell situation. And then we're riding in the car and my daughter makes a joke and says, and Jonah keeps stealing all of mama's milk or something like that. And the way she said it, absolutely, you would have thought that my 9-year-old was still breastfeeding. Absolutely. And I just happened to catch a micro expression from my stepmother that like her eyeballs really kind of bugged out of her head. She was just like, And I mean, I didn't take the time to say like, no, she's not breastfeeding anymore. I just let the moment sit there. But boy, I was laughing hysterically. And I told my daughter, I was like, did you know that Nanny thinks you're still having milk because of what you said? And we both had a great laugh. Pretty funny.
Cool. That's so wonderful. So many different perspectives and stories. Yeah. Okay. In contrast to what you've been sharing, as I work in Gurgaon, and it's a town in the northern part of the country, and here there is so much taboo about breastfeeding even beyond an year, and it is considered like tandem nursing is hardly to be seen because they believe that it is so not so trending to breastfeed your child, right? And there's so very much sexualization around breast that women hardly dare to breastfeed in public. Very few of them do, and tandem nursing, very few people. So most of the times we are getting requests around how to wean off the child when they are pregnant, rather than seeking support on tandem nursing, because there's so much of pressure that comes from the inner circle, the families, that they just surrender. And when we kind of offer them choices that you do have an option of doing this, but somehow I think the society fails at it, and society fails them in making that choice. Okay,
Just
anyone
to add,
yeah, Divya.
just if I could add, Yogita, for me, I saw this 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds nursing for the first time when I was in Gurgaon. So there is tandem nursing, there is nursing older children. It's just so much, in the closet kind of thing, because of this
Maybe.
lack of communities and a non-judgmental space. So, especially people who are in birth work, it's, up to people now to create these intentional spaces where mothers can choose what works for them and be themselves, what they need to be for the best of their families. So yeah, till I came across this group there, I also thought the same, that okay, everyone is struggling to even exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. Forget, breastfeeding a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or whatever works for you. So it's important that mothers see others doing it around them. And there are many people, they don't talk about it, they don't come out about it, but making that intentional space can make a world of a difference to a mother who believes something in her heart and is being told something else by others around her. But what should be done and should not be done, and here's what the head coming in between.
I was just thinking that recently a couple of people have not offered, but it advised me to stop, that I should stop now. It's very draining for me. And I tend to really freeze up when people give me advice that makes me want to makes me basically feel violent. And I don't want to be or react in a violent way. So I get very stoic. But what I would wish that I had said is that it's not draining for me. It's supportive for me. this process is easy for me. It doesn't mean that that's how it is for other people, but it has been easy for me. And it's a way that I can sustain my children and nourish them that is very low energy for me, very low impact for me. And so, you know, I can give them what they need while I just sit and have my own brain space sometimes and can touch them and connect. And it's taking it away, and the idea of trying to fill it before they're ready before they've filled that void seems like a huge ask that is unnecessary to put on myself. And I actually had one of my homeopathic doctors told me, now it's time you stop feeding him. And I'm just like, I think that you just broke our bond. Like I couldn't talk to her. I wish I had said, I don't agree with you at all. But I didn't.
Right.
Thank you, Leslie. And these are precisely the subtleties that we were looking out for in these dialogues, you know, what everybody goes through on a day-to-day basis at a very deep emotional level. Because everything that we feel in our emotions eventually manifests in the physical. So if women are supported at that level emotionally, there's a lot that they can accomplish outside. Thank you for bringing these up.
My pleasure. Thank you for creating this forum for all of us to be together.
Tabisha, would you like to go next? Tabisha, are you here with us? Nutan ma'am, would you like to kind of just give us an overall perspective on why one can continue to breastfeed during pregnancy and how tandem nursing is actually beneficial for everybody involved in the relationship? If you can let us know in terms of the science of it and how it impacts.
I have sort of shared articles on tandem nursing on my Facebook page. And it was Divya, she came to me for her second delivery. And it was her experience that got me thinking on those lines, because she mentioned that she was continuing to feed her baby. And then I met her at the conference on Birthing the New Humanity in Bangalore. And we further discussed her journey. So it is from my students that I learn. And yes, there have been occasional moms who have tandem fed, few and far between, because generally they are asked to stop breastfeeding by families and doctors, and that's a general feeling in the community. But what is so interesting, like Divya just mentioned, that the release of oxytocin is there when you breastfeed, but the oxytocin receptors are multiplied to a tremendous number just during labor and delivery. And so we need not worry about the oxytocin effect of tandem nursing, which one would normally, think of. So that is a very interesting fact to support tandem nursing. And I think the fact of it is also in our cultural history, because I do remember my coming from a large family. There were lots of babies and there were lots of So there was often, if there were twins also in the house, naturally born, naturally conceived twins. And my mother was breastfeeding while my aunt had twins. So they used to tandem nurse for each other if one went, to the market or one had some other commitment socially. You never worried about expressing your milk and leaving it because it was always another lactating mom that fed. And I do remember that I had a cousin. Well, later as families grew, people separated and, were not in the same premises anymore. So one family went off, but there was one child who had tandem fed with my mom because my elder sister and he were the same age, while his mother had twins. His mother was feeding twins, and he breastfed with my mom and my sister. And when they grew up, the families were all one looking here, one looking here. But this particular child who had breastfed with my mom continued his connection with our family. He didn't break up with us. He was connected with us till the very last, actually. He passed away now. And so definitely there is a connection which is not visible as such immediately. But yes, there is definitely a feeling of security and a bond that happens when you breastfeed. And that is so wonderful for a child to have, rather than a child be without a feeling of belonging, without a feeling of bonding, because these are very subtle things. And they go a long way in keeping you balanced mentally and emotionally. And I think when you are balanced mentally and emotionally, your immunity is also better, because it's when you're upset, when you're depressed, your immunity goes down. So definitely breastfeeding goes a long way. And tandem feeding, I think we require to make, there should be more awareness of it. There is not much awareness of it right now. And the more we make people aware of the benefits of it and the science of it, the more they'll be able to take their decisions. And like I said last time, that now they have discovered that breast milk also has stem cells. And that's so amazing, because any kind of repair the baby's body needs in any part of the body, the stem cell will go and do the repair as required, or do the healing as required. So that is a big thing about the science of breast milk that really needs to get out there, and people need to reaffirm their faith in breastfeeding over formula feeding. And like yesterday Meghna said that she was told that there are 26 vitamins in the formula. But what about the number of things that breast milk has? It has immunities, it has stem cells, it also has vitamins, and the quality of breast milk when the mother is not malnourished is very good. So yes, would someone else like to add something to that or give their comment or anything?
Can I add something?
Yes, Divya.
Yeah, and Nutan ma'am, when I actually stopped nursing after almost 8 years with both babies, I thought I would be like, one phase is over, it would be a nice change. But I had withdrawal symptoms. I think the babies moved on more easily when they were done. It was
Yeah,
difficult for me to let go because of the oxytocin or whatever.
you may be missing your oxytocin.
Yeah, so
Because when you breastfeed, you get oxytocin, and that reduces depression in the mother as well. The oxytocin.
absolutely. Yes, yes. Yeah. Hmm.
But that
Yeah,
is
so I
so
said it's
interesting
both the
that you said,
easiest and the most.
yeah, that you had withdrawal
Sorry,
symptoms.
please go
So
ahead.
cute. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Divya, you were my teacher for tandem.
I think we all learn from each other. I learned so
Yes.
much from you, and I'm always
We
grateful
all
for
learn
that.
from each other. That's so true. That's so true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to share their story?
I'd like to share something about feeding during labor. So that was one question that I used to get constantly from people because I stay alone. So they used to ask me, in case you go into labor, what will you do? Who will look after the baby? How will you breastfeed the baby? So what happened is when I went into labor, early labor, I was still feeding my son. I didn't really feel anything different. So we're going on with it. By night, once I went into active labor, and when I was going to the birth center, at that time, my son had not fed through the journey. It was a 15-minute journey. He didn't feed, and when we're closing towards the birthing center, I realized that my contractions were dropping. So I was having intense contractions earlier at home. And when we reached the birthing center, it started getting lower. So I knew in case it's not very strong, then I might have to go back also, which I didn't want to do after coming all the way. So I picked up my son. I told him, feed now. And he started feeding. And right when he started feeding, the contractions became more intense at that point. So he actually helped me through labor to get it done with it quicker. And Touchwood, for some reason, he usually used to, obviously, he was just 1 year at that time. So he used to wake up multiple times for feeds at night. But that was the only night that he actually slept through the night. He knew I needed my time, my space, and he gave me that.
That's beautiful, Nasila. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yogita, could you also make Nasila the co-host? She has a couple of videos that we wanted to share during the session.
Yeah, just
Nasila, maybe you can share Neha's video about where she shares her experience of tandem breastfeeding.
Yes, I'll do that.
uh, yeah, she is the co-host now. Nasila, you can go ahead.
Okay.
So Neha has been participating with us for most of the sessions. She wasn't there yesterday, and she's not there today because she's moving to Finland today. She's traveling, and hopefully she'll join us from Finland tomorrow. But she had a little something to share about tandem breastfeeding, so she sent a little video on it.
Give me a moment. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet, Nasila.
Not yet. Okay. How about now?
Not yet.
Right. I don't think it's happening then. Um, I'm actually using my phone. Normally, I use it on the laptop. To share it over here. Someone, could you possibly do that?
Let me try. Could you make me the co-host?
Yeah. I'm not able to do that either. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yogyata, can you make me the co-host? Then I'll try. Otherwise, we can just go ahead.
I'll rather make Nasila host maybe, or I'll just allow I think the participants to.
Is it that only 2 hosts can be there?
I'll just check. I made someone new the co-host. Yeah.
Okay. I suppose we can maybe she can share in person when she joins us tomorrow. Let's go ahead. Am I audible?
Yes, someone.
Yeah. Okay. So, Tabisha, would you like to share your story quickly?
Saman?
Yeah. Mukti? Yeah. Hello.
Uh, hi, Saman.
Hi, Mokshi. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to join the meeting. And these sessions are really insightful and useful to all new mothers, I'm sure.
Congratulations on your new baby, Mokshi.
Thank you. You want to see my baby?
Yes, please.
Um, she's sleeping right now.
Lots of.
Thank you, everyone. So Saman is a really old friend of mine, and we met in college, and we had lots of fun time. We shot a movie together, and then later Saman went on her journey of exploration, and I think she's found her purpose now. she was, on the track of finding her purpose, and now finally she's found it after so many years, and she's here to stay and help the world. And with all of you, I'm sure you all are experts and are there to help everybody. So that's a very selfless and good and giving nature of all of you. So thank you for sharing your love and knowledge with everybody. So someone requested me to sing a lullaby. So I'm just gonna sing a simple a Hindi lullaby. It's from the movie Swades. It's sung by Udit Narayan and I think Madhushri, not sure. Okay. Ahista, 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 निंदिया तू आ इन दो नैनों में, हल्के से हौले से कुछ सपने भोले से, निंदिया तुला इन दो नैनों में हो, वही सोई सोई जैसे सारी फिजाएं, समा भी है सोया सोया सा, निंदिया रे तू मेरे अंगना में आ जा रे, इन झुकती पलकों पे छा जा रे, आहिस्ता 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 निंदिया तू आ इन दो नैनों में, मुलायम मुलायम सी नीली नीली रात है, थपकती है इस दिल को यादें कई, यादों के पालने में कहीं खोई खोई बात है, ओ निंदिया अब आके तू मेरी मीठी लोरी गा के मेरे सपनों को सजा दे हो, यादों का पलना झुला दे, आहिस्ता 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 निंदिया तू आ इन दो नैनों में. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, and bravo to all the mothers who are doing the greatest job possible and standing up for yourself and believing in your heart and what your intuition tells you. That's a really brave thing. So thanks for being an inspiration and supporting everybody.
Thank you, Mo. This is so beautiful. I wish I could sing to my children. I only have my boob to soothe them. I could never sing.
No, I think when you sing from your heart to your baby, it's musical, no matter if the notes hit right or not.
That's true. I think it's also important to know what, like, I think I was always told as a child as I was growing up. I always liked to sing, but I was told that I didn't really have a voice, And that what you're told when you're a child, it stays with you.
Yeah,
And it's so important to say the right words, to put in the right thoughts in your children
absolutely.
as they are growing up, and especially in these fundamental years.
Yes.
So you're right. I mean, when I was pregnant with Kabir,
Yeah.
I was really inspired to take up classical singing, and I started singing.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, this was back in Goa, and I think I did well. I mean, I could hear myself out. I could sing with my, with my eyes closed at the pitch of my voice, and I was doing it like you
Yeah.
said, and children bring out the most transformative things. Like, I used to be really scared of water, but when I got pregnant with Kyra, my eldest daughter, I learned how to swim while I was pregnant. I picked up belly dancing when I was pregnant with my second one.
Yeah.
They really, I mean, you become another person. It's like you're born again, and you have one chance to live your life one more time, and start from scratch. It's
I
so
agree. I
beautiful.
agree.
Thank you, Mokshi.
Anytime, anytime. And just sing to your baby like you would sing in the shower. Lots of love. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to share? I just, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I have a few things to share. So Kyra was a year and a half and we got pregnant again. And I, of course, continued to breastfeed through all of it. I breastfed through labor. And then when Kabir was born, and Kyra used to eat everything. She was really into fruits. We were in Goa back then. Um, so she was into breastfeeding, but she used to eat everything. But when my second child was born, she kind of went back to exclusively breastfeeding. She stopped eating. And I went to my midwife and I asked her, uh, she's having my breast milk, and I wasn't so aware, or I wasn't trying to manage the whole thing like Leslie had read through it, and she was ensuring which baby gets the milk, and first the colostrum comes in, so I wasn't so sure. I was also thinking that she might develop an aversion to it on her own, but she didn't, and she loved breastfeeding all the time. And what it did was, what I was so surprised to notice is that she actually ended up gaining 3 kgs in the first month. Of course, the newborn was doing all well, but she became her chubby old self. And I couldn't, it really surprised me to see that, how my body was able to produce so much milk, and I wasn't really making sure that I was just breastfeeding both of them on demand. And what she really helped me with was engorgement. So there were times when I had a lot of milk coming in, and the newborn will not be drinking as much. So I would just, even if Kyra's sleeping, I would go near her and she could smell the milk and she would just come and help me with my engorgement in like a minute. And I'd be in my happy place again. So that happened. And then I was breastfeeding both of them. I read up a lot, of course, as I was experiencing. I didn't have a reference point, anybody that I knew personally who had breastfed two children of different ages together. But it is something that came to me naturally. My husband was very supportive. So I remember, I think Kabir was 20 days old, and that was for the first time that I breastfed both of them together. Like, one was on one breast and the other was on the other breast, and it happened. It worked out. And then I saw how, they would hold each other's hands, and one of them would be just, caressing the other one and looking at each other. And it was such a beautiful sight. I mean, of course, these aren't things that get documented. This is such an intimate and personal moment that nobody else in the world would know what I saw from that vantage point. I'm right here and I can see these two children, these two little humans that I've had some contribution to bring to this world and to, you know, um, and it was amazing. And Kabir was a year old when we conceived again for the third time. So this time I was tandem nursing two children, and I had a pregnancy going. And Alhamdulillah, all of my pregnancies were very healthy, except for the fact that I would feel very very hungry all the time. Um, I would I would want to nibble something every 1 hour. I would be very thirsty. There will be moments when I would feel touched out. There will be times when it would be a little inconvenient to breastfeed both of them together with a grown belly, but we would manage our way around it. I would also lose my temper sometimes. I would also feel touched out. I also had moments of, crying when I was like, there's only so much of myself that I can give. And sometimes when it was a little hard on me to breastfeed both of them together with a pregnant belly, um, and I would have to choose between the two. And I tell Kyra that, um, let me feed Kabir first as he's younger. And, it never makes sense. Those choices have been very hard to make. Uh, if you should tell the older child who may be needing it a little more, because Kabir was also obviously eating, but he would come to the boob because every time I would want to, or Kyra would want to be nursed, he would want to come. It was a kind of a, we have to do it together, even a sense of competition, that I would want to breastfeed every time my sisters, because he would do everything that Kyra was doing all the time. So he would follow her. So if she was at my breast, he was at my breast. And sometimes I would lose my temper on Kyra, and I wasn't happy about it. It would make me feel very guilty. I would say things that it would make, she would immediately withdraw, and she started becoming a little quiet. Like she would start hesitating and asking for milk because she saw that it was not comfortable for me. Not all the time, but there were moments when this happened, and she was very, very sad. And I'll make up for it. Like I'll speak to her at a later point, and I'll apologize for what I said, and I'll tell her that you got boo boo for 2 more years, and you're my firstborn, and I love you a lot. And Kabir loves you a lot, and he wants to do everything that you do. So he's always there, because even though I saw them bond so beautifully, the sibling bonding that tandem nursing facilitated was huge. But at one point, it also became like a source of like, uh, tension, because I wasn't able to breastfeed both of them together, especially when I was pregnant again. And then I was due in the same month when Kyra was about to turn 4. So their birthdays are 10 days apart. So I started telling her, and I started talking of weaning. And of course, the whole cultural thing was happening. People around me were not very comfortable about me continuing to breastfeed beyond 2 years. But like Nasila said, I've also been a rebel for most part of my life. And but even in my rebellion, I'm trying to kind of seek consensus. Like I try to educate myself, and I try to bring about that awareness and explain to people why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's the energy around me is not very hostile. Uh, uh, but they were like, this might, how will you manage with another newborn and these two older children? 2 minutes. I just want to finish this. So 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 this happened, and then I started explaining it to her that the day you turn 4, that's when we stop. And it'll be it'll be, and she was prepared for it, and we were preparing for her birthday. And then her birthday came, and we were home with all the family, and we celebrated her birthday with all the near and dear ones. And then at night, once her birthday celebrations were over, while I was nursing her, she looked at me like I could feel that she's done nursing, but she continued to nurse on, and she said, "Can I continue for a little longer, because I won't be able to nurse tomorrow?" And she had tears in her eyes as she said it, and I said, "You can have as much as you like." And um, then she stopped nursing, and she said, "I wish my birthday had never come." And she said, and that's because she was like, "Now that I'm 4, I won't be able to do this tomorrow morning." And I told her, this doesn't have to be like this. It just, both of us like had this moment, and that's when I got my resolve. I said, no, I'm not stopping it. I'm not stopping it for her. I'm not stopping it for any of them until it happens on its own, whenever the day comes. And after that, I stopped questioning myself, and I stopped trying to convince myself or others on it. It's still a struggle a lot of times with 3 of them together. Like, I'm always, I can only manage 2 at a time. But I know what it has done. All 3 of them are very happy babies. They sleep so peacefully through the night. Please. So, just wanted to share this little bit. And as for, I used to feel how can I, how can they all breastfeed for so long? And do I even have milk? And when I would check, I would still be having milk. So I really am marveled at the capacity of a woman's body to produce so much milk. And the fact that the breast knows who it is nursing, and the milk comes differently. And now Kyra is old enough to kind of talk about it, so she tells me how she, what it tastes like. And like sometimes, people would tell me, if you feed her enough, if she's well fed, she will not come for the breast. But like Divya said, the more you resist it, the more it persists. So even if she had a meal of something that she loved and she had a full belly, she would still want to come and nurse immediately after that. And I would be like, why do you want to nurse now? You just had your meal. And she'd be like, but I need something meetha at the end of the meal, you know? So, so yeah, that's there. Over to you, Yogyata. I can go on and on.
And we have Tapasya also here. And Zareen, I guess Zareen just joined.
Hi, yeah, I can go ahead if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was with my journey. The main thing was I have 4 little ones. And they vary from 8, and then I have twins that are 6, and then my youngest is just over a year old. So with all of them, you can hear them. With all of them, I started my breastfeeding journey with my oldest, and that was. Can you tell them to be quiet? I'm gonna call. Okay. Yeah, I'll come and watch it. Come here. So then talk about you had milk with your sister? Yeah, you want to tell how much milk? I used to have breast milk with your sister. do you want to tell everyone? So for my twins, basically I did a lot of tandem nursing with them, where with them it was the longest journey that I've had with breastfeeding. So up until they were about 4.5 years old. And that's where, as they get older, they're able to understand more about the milk process and the power of breast milk. Because, for example, now they still see me nursing my youngest one, who's just over 1, and they'll understand the power of milk. For example, where my middle daughter got hurt yesterday on her foot, and she got like a scratch. So they all come up while I'm nursing the youngest one, and she's like, well, why don't you put some milk on it? And it's kind of like, that's where, like they understand how powerful breast milk can be.
I don't have
So that's where they understand the power of breast milk and what the capabilities of it are. And they always tell me where, I'll give it to you in a second, where they'll tell me, okay, well, when I was like 4.5, they're like, we used to come and suck and suck and suck, and there wouldn't be any milk coming out. And that's kind of where, when we talked, I think in some of the previous sessions, we talked about how the baby's jaw adapts. And once they start learning to drink from cups, and when they start drinking from other things, some of that suction and that sucking technique that they had when they were younger kind of goes away, or they forget about that, or they need to relearn that. So that's also where sometimes one of the twins used to be able to still get milk from one breast, and then the other one wouldn't. And that would sometimes be frustrating for her. So it's kind of where, as they get older, they learn more and they understand more. And even now, like, they're not having milk on a regular basis. Like, they'll still say, okay, well, let me taste it, or let me see it. Let me see how it squirts and stuff. So they're just kind of like experimenting with it. But that's also where we can create that empowerment, where younger kids are never going to be sexualizing a body part. It's up to us to teach them the right body anatomy that goes with it, for them to understand, okay, these are breasts. They are there for us to be nourishing and feeding our babies and our little ones. And that's also like a big part of it for them as well too. Like, even for my son and stuff, he'll still see me nursing my youngest one. It's not that I'll go somewhere and they won't see it. Like, if I'm in the bedroom, it's a great way for them to come in. All of us just kind of have that quiet time and relax, for them to be able to see me feeding and nourishing the youngest one, but then also being able to see how they can adapt. So with that as well, one of the other things that we talk to them about with tandem nursing, or with nursing in general, is also the fact that it's their source of food and their nourishment that they get. And that's something that, like, they understand completely as well too. Where one of the things that we talked about in some of the other sessions was the mental health of the mom, because usually when we start nursing, that's when it's one of the biggest struggles, because getting them to latch, trying to get them to either tandem nurse at the same time is a big help for a mother's mental health when they're nursing at the same time. But it's also, once you've accomplished the breastfeeding, usually within a couple months, you get into the routine of things and it gets easier. But then again, I think the mental struggle comes back again when you're weaning, or when maybe the baby doesn't want to wean and the mother wants to wean, because they might want a restful night's sleep and it's just better for their mental health. So these are all other moms. So just finding that balance between what works for you and what works for them. Because for my son, he basically night nursed until 2.5, where he would wake up still every couple hours and I would feed him, and I was co-sleeping, which is a huge savior. But then afterwards, with the twins at around 17 months, I was like, you can pull it up again. I was basically at my wit's end. I was like, I need a full night's rest of sleep. Can you guys go outside and do this? I can fill it up again for you. Okay, I'll get it for you afterwards. So that's where, for 17 months, I was like, I need a full night's rest. I can't keep going through taking care of them throughout the day, being able to work and being able to focus on my work, and then still also having to get up every couple hours to feed them, where at 17 months, they're able to sleep through the night if we want to encourage them to do that. And that's where it was a struggle for me to have them cry or feeling them that they were upset, because we were still like co-sleeping and stuff. So that's kind of where I had my husband also step in to be able to help to kind of put them to bed, create a routine where when they were able to sleep through the night, it was a huge difference for me. And that was where, for a mom's mental health, being able to find that sleep and that restful state is a big part of it, because we struggle throughout every child's journey at different points in time. And that's where we need to find a balance for ourselves as well as our babies. And then for my son as well right now, it's also, again, co-sleeping, where whenever he asks for milk, it's there. And usually, like, so that's kind of where you have to figure out how the sleeping situation is going to be in your house, where my husband's being like, oh, we haven't slept in the same bed for years. It's like, we'll sleep he'll be in the bed beside us, but usually now with my son, I'll sleep on the ground or on the mattress on the ground. And then I'll just have like my shirt open for most of the night, where he'll have access to my boobs. So half the time I'm like in a sleep or in a daze, where he'll latch on, get his milk, and then hop off. And that's kind of where we as moms need to figure out what kind of works for us and create that balance between both of us, like mom and the baby, to be able to support us for a longer period of time. And if that means stopping night nursing so that the baby can basically nurse throughout the day and get more nourishment throughout the day, then do that. But find what works for you to be able to support yourself in your journey, because there's so many other moms that I connect with where right now they're at the stages where their little ones are a year or 2 years or 3 years, and they're struggling with the pain of, I want to stop nursing for my health, but I know the baby's still wanting that attachment and that emotional encouragement that they also get and receive through latching on, because your breast milk and your breasts are not just nourishment. It's a source of compassion that the baby feels. It's your heartbeat that they're feeling when they're so close to your body. It's your aroma, it's your touch, it's everything that they get, that they're getting that skin to skin, that it is so much more than just nourishment for a baby. And that's where, when we look at babies that have had longer breastfeeding, we look at their emotional states as they grow up, as they come in through their toddlerhood. And it's a big difference, where a lot of them are a little bit more emotionally stable because they've felt that compassion and that love that's come through their mother's milk and their breast as well too. So that's my story. I'll hand it back over to Yogita. Apologies for all the loud noises.
That was beautiful, and I really second your thoughts that we've just brought down breastfeeding to the so much more. And new mothers need to understand that. And mothers like you are inspiring other mothers to breastfeed for as much long as they mutually want to do it.
Yeah. And one other thing was, like, I guess I think when I had my first, it was always like, oh, he's wanting to nurse again. Oh, I'm supposed to be in a meeting right now and he's wanting to nurse again. Like, I need to stop like the nursing. And like now it's like, I'll bring the little one along with me. And if I'm on a call or if I'm in a meeting, they'll just nurse along with me. And now it's also to the point where, especially when I had my twins, it was, for me, I found it was a point for me to be able to disconnect from the daily life and take a break for myself, because I was able to lie down, nurse with them, have like 10 minutes to myself, even though they're latched, but it's like just that quiet time for me. So that's where the mentality changed over the children that I nursed, I guess, where first sometimes it was stressful to say, okay, I need to nurse you again and again and again. Whereas afterwards it was like, nope, this is the time where I get to spend some me time, even though you're latched on, but I get to just kind of shut down from all the day-to-day tasks, everything that's going on. And it's like finding that quiet space. Like, so yes, I'll usually nurse out wherever I need to, but then if I need time for myself, then I'll just come up to my bedroom, nurse, lying down. It's a point where I can just kind of put my feet up and have that moment to relax as well too. So changing like that mindset shift of like, instead of making it as like a task that needs to be done, instead of having it more as like stepping back and taking care of yourself while you're nourishing baby.
And I just want to bring this up that a lot of the times when I feel, that I can't do this anymore, I think for a bit longer and I'm like, it's not the breastfeeding that's really getting to me, or that's not what I want to continue with. It is the lack of otherwise support that, there's no community, there's no family around, that we are all by ourselves holding such small babies. If I'm nursing one, there's nobody else to engage in a meaningful way with my other ones. And that is what is making this uncomfortable, because while I want to be in this moment when I'm nursing this one, the other one is crying now. And um, that is something that breaks my heart. And I'm feeling that, that's when you start questioning yourself that, was it a good call? When people say, those words start ringing to your head again, that it was your choice, to have children close together, or to continue to breastfeed, or tandem feed, or extended breastfeeding. Now the other one's crying, and I would really want somebody to just soothe him right now, but I don't have that support, and my heart.
When some of the moms were talking about how sweet the babies are beside each other on the breast, I do remember some of those moments, but I also remember some competition at the breast, and it not being idyllic really, but kind of hard for me to manage, and maybe in each other's space, and maybe like a little bit of like kind of pushing away. And sometimes in parenthood, I feel like, actually just in relationships in general, that giving, people get used to giving. So no matter how much we give, it's not like it fills people up, especially children. It feels more like the more we give, the more my children want from me, really. So I'm not sure what the answer is there, but maybe it has something to do with, me giving myself approval and love, and realizing like, someone, you're doing so much. And but we just want to be able to do it all. I think sometimes, I know I do. I want to be able to soothe both my kids at once. But then sometimes I also just want it to be enough. Like, isn't it enough that I helped you soothe all day long? Do you still need more? But I mean, but I feel you, someone. And your children are small still.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I think at the end of the day, it's like, I'm touched out. I need a break. It's like, because it's even like, for example, right now, like before I started the call, all of them were downstairs playing. And it's like, they smell me leaving. They come in, like, it's like there's other people to be helping, like watch them and stuff, but it's like they all gravitate. And it's like they all want to be in that same space. And it's like, I need like space. And I think, yeah, by the end of the day, even like because I usually work from home, but even then it's like, I just need a break, like 5 minutes away from the kids and stuff, because it's a lot. Like, they're constantly on you. They're constantly wanting your attention. And even, and it's like also constantly like on your breast, on your chest, everywhere and stuff. So I think as moms, we need to realize that, yes, it's okay for us to say, I'm touched out. Like this is enough. Like I need space now for myself. And it's hard. Like even with like space and even with other rooms available and stuff, they're always still kind of gravitating into the same space. So just finding that balance and stuff and being able to create that. And if that means like leaving the house and going for a walk without your kids for a little bit, take that space and take that time for yourself and just sit somewhere even outside. But I think that's needed because it's a lot. Like, as like Leslie said, it's like we're always giving, but it's also like a time where now like the girls are old enough, my son is old enough that now it's like we'll set up like little self-care days where we'll take time for them to pamper themselves, for us to pamper ourselves, so that they can also see that, because those are things that they need to start coming into themselves, for them to learn as well, to say, we shouldn't just always be giving. Like we need to take care of ourselves in order for us to be able to give more. So that's kind of where it's always a balance between that.
Yes, bouts of self-care are very, very important. Very, very important. Aman, do you take out time for something like this for self-care?
I don't think so. I don't think I've had that time to myself in years. I mean, and I know that the moment I'm stressed out or the moment I start setting boundaries and I say that not right now, everything starts falling apart. Everybody starts crashing down. And so I really have to kind of really work on my emotions only all the time. That's why I feel that, and I've been really at the heart of politics and activism all my life. So I've been out there doing the dharnas, facing the police, speaking out for corruption. And while that has been one part of me, I think this is just another level of activism. I mean, give so much of yourself. I mean, I don't know how any woman, and I have so much more respect for a woman, for a mother. I feel like nobody knows, and the reason why I kind of got this community is because I feel that we need to acknowledge ourselves. We need to have these spaces where we can share our heart out, share about our vulnerabilities, our challenges, without being told that, एक second पे ला रही हूँ बेटा, ये लो. And like Leslie said, they just smell it. They know exactly. They won't be around all the time. But the moment if I have to, that's why I needed like 2 other people at least to co-host, because I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to attend these sessions, to be honest. I've never been on a call. I've never had a work meeting. They are always with me all the time when I take a shower, when, of course, we are co-sleeping.
These are also work meetings, much more engrossing.
Yeah. So, but I just have to keep saying that when I'm relaxed, when I'm in my zone, and when I think about it, I know it is not the children and it is not breastfeeding that is the issue. The issue is the lack of support, for sure. So we have to figure out some practical ways of keep this dialogue going and actually come up with a solution, Nuclear families, not having neighbors, not having a community of like-minded people. Like none of my children have ever watched TV or cartoons, or they've never had the mobile to themselves, no iPads, no exposure to the screen in the last 4-5 years. And but I cannot ask somebody who's hooked onto their devices or who would please don't do that, Kabir. Tyra, please band kariye. Can you just look after Azad, please, for a minute, please? I'm feeding Kabir. Usko utha lo, please. वो गिर गया. So we need to figure out better ways of being. That's why I keep thinking that something has been deliberately done, whether it be the education system or, you know, how everybody is enslaved in a Naukri system in a way that, you know, the most crucial thing, what makes you human, the reason why we are called mammals is because of these mammary glands, you know, and it is so, I mean, if you look at cross-cultural research, it is so common. Tyra, please engage with him. He's going to cry, then I won't be able to talk. Yeah. You know, that it is very common for all animals, primates to feed on their mother's milk until they develop their adult immunity. And in human beings, that comes at the age of 5 or 6. So actually it is very common, and it was very common until maybe a couple of centuries ago, for mothers to continue to breastfeed for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, you know. So we need to, I would always think that, you know, if I was in a jungle and if I didn't have anybody to tell me what to do, I would have only followed my instincts, right? And that's what I'm trying to do. But it's a lot more harder when everybody is trying to tell you exactly the opposite. So that is a challenge, and that is something that we shall overcome together, inshallah. That's it. Thank you for me. That's it for me.
Well, many a times when people ask that, families ask that what kind of support that the partners ask that what kind of support I should offer to my partner and things like those. So the first thing that comes to my mind is just let her be, you know. A woman is, to be honest, very determined to follow her instincts. If society doesn't prompt her that you should be doing this, you should not be doing this, that, and all that, the support is not to intervene and letting her be. If even that is done, this is enough. We might not need, maybe not many hands, but yes, we are enough on our own. We are enough if people don't prompt us on doing and not doing things like that. Thank you, Leslie. And do we have anyone else who would like to share something? Okay. So are we going to go towards the closure on this? Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us and sharing your beautiful stories, your perspectives, and lovely babies on the screen. Okay. We'll keep continuing such kind of conversations and grow more tribe like us. There's another meeting tomorrow. Thank you someone for putting it all. And I would also like to thank the person who made the posters. They are so beautiful. Right? Okay. So we go apart till we meet again.
Thank you, Yogita.
Pleasure, son. Okay. Thank you and enjoy your Sunday.